Richard Sterling was not a man easily shaken. As one of the city's wealthiest real estate tycoons, he was accustomed to boardroom battles, high-stakes negotiations, and a life where every detail was controlled to perfection. But that afternoon, on a busy Manhattan street, control slipped through his fingers in the most unexpected way. It began with Olivia Bennett, his fiancée, stopping mid-step. She clutched his arm so suddenly that he almost stumbled. Her voice dropped to a whisper, her eyes wide as they fixed on something, or rather, someone, across the sidewalk. "Richard, he looks like your lost son." Richard followed her gaze and froze. There, sitting on the edge of a cold stone ledge, was a boy who could not have been older than 12. His frame was heartbreakingly thin, his skin stretched tight over bones that looked far too fragile to carry him. His blonde hair hung in uneven strands, and his knees were drawn close, as if he were trying to make himself invisible. But it wasn't his frailty that made Richard's chest tighten, it was his face. The curve of his jaw, the slight slope of his nose, the unmistakable hazel-green eyes, they were the same as Michael's. Michael, the name itself, was a wound. 15 years ago, Richard's life had cracked in two. His 3-year-old son had vanished from a crowded seaside boardwalk, and despite exhaustive searches, the authorities had declared him lost, likely drowned. It had destroyed Richard's marriage, consumed his nights with guilt, and left a hollow space in his heart that no amount of wealth could fill. And now here was this boy. Olivia's hand trembled as she pointed. "Richard, it's him, I swear, it has to be him." Richard couldn't move at first. His polished shoes felt cemented to the pavement. Finally, he took a slow step forward, then another, until he stood just a few feet away. The boy didn't look up. His thin fingers were tracing the cracks in the stone ledge. "Hey," Richard said gently, his voice betraying a hint of tremor. "Are you okay?" The boy flinched at the sound, as if unused to kindness. His eyes darted up briefly, just enough for Richard to feel the world tilt under him. Those eyes, the same mixture of innocence and defiance. "I'm fine," the boy muttered, looking away again. Richard glanced at Olivia, who gave him a small nod, urging him to try again. "What's your name?" "Daniel," the boy said after a pause. His voice was hoarse, as though speaking hurt. "Daniel Hayes." Richard's heart pounded. Hayes. The surname meant nothing, but the first name, Daniel, was eerily close to Michael's middle name. Coincidence, or something more? Olivia knelt beside the boy, her tailored cream dress brushing the concrete. "Daniel, where are your parents?" she asked softly. He shrugged. "Don't have any, at least not ones who wanted me." The words landed like a blow to Richard's chest. Daniel told them, in fragments, about bouncing between foster homes, about nights spent sleeping in doorways when the homes became too cruel, about never knowing where he came from, only that someone had found him wandering the streets at the age of 4, unable to explain much beyond the fact that the water was loud that day. Richard's breath caught. The water. The day Michael disappeared had been windy, the waves roaring against the pier. "Daniel," Richard said quietly, "can I take you to get something to eat?" The boy eyed him suspiciously. "Why?" "Because I think I might know something about you." That afternoon turned into a week of cautious connection. Richard didn't push, but he kept showing up, bringing food, warm clothes, and gentle questions. Daniel, used to people disappearing from his life, was wary at first, but Olivia's warmth slowly chipped away at his defenses. Then came the night Daniel got sick, burning with fever from an untreated infection. Richard rushed him to the hospital, staying by his side through the long hours. In that sterile white room, as the boy drifted in and out of sleep, Richard noticed something, a faint birthmark behind his left ear, the same one Michael had. The next morning, Richard asked Daniel if he'd be willing to take a DNA test. Daniel hesitated, his voice barely a whisper. "People have done that before. I was never the kid they wanted." Richard reached for his hand. "If you're not my son, I'll still want you. You hear me?" Daniel searched his eyes for a long time before nodding. The results came a week later. Richard opened the envelope with trembling hands, Olivia at his side, Daniel sitting quietly across the room. The paper confirmed it in black and white, 99.99% probability. Daniel was Michael Sterling. The boy's eyes filled with confusion. "So, you're my dad." Richard's voice broke. "I've always been your dad, I just couldn't find you." Daniel stood frozen for a moment, then stepped into his father's arms. It was awkward at first, then tight, then unshakable, two souls reclaiming years stolen from them. The city kept moving around them unaware. But for Richard, Olivia, and the boy who had survived against all odds, time stood still. The past had been cruel, but the future finally belonged to them. Sometimes miracles don't happen in churches or hospitals. Sometimes they happen on an ordinary street, on an ordinary day, when love finally recognizes the face it lost long ago.